In today's video, we're taking a latest look at the trade rumors around the league. Today, we're talking about teams like the Vancouver Canucks, the San Jose Sharks, the Columbus Blue Jackets, the latest on Jacob Chychrun. We have news from the NHL waiver wire, some more injury updates, and another big loss for the Jackets resulting in a closed-door meeting. We'll discuss the possibilities of what can happen there coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and some trade talk to take a look at today. First up, we got news from the NHL waiver wire this afternoon. The Buffalo Sabres have placed center iceman Riley Sheahan on waivers. Of course, he was signed to a short-term, fairly cheap contract at the beginning of the season. He made the team out of training camp, but they've essentially had him as an extra forward, and he has not yet played this season. Clearly, they're happy with their group, and they don't really see him in their immediate plans, at least at the NHL level, so they've placed him on waivers. I'm sure they would probably like to assign him to the minors if need be, or he gets obviously claimed by another team. But either way, I think it's important that he gets some opportunity to play. If it's not going to be in Buffalo, then somewhere else. It's really hard to say if somebody will pick him up. He's kind of become a well-traveled fourth-line center, bounced around to a number of teams in the last number of years. So hard to say what happens with Sheahan if he gets picked up or goes to the minors. But we'll find out at 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow on Monday. And of course, as well, we just want to take a quick moment and acknowledge one of our channel partners, Fanatics. Of course, Fanatics to me is a great partner to obtain all of your NHL merchandise that you may want. Of course, they have a wide selection of NHL jerseys, shirts, hoodies, hats, everything you could possibly want. They have great deals here all the time. Being a partner with them is great as well. Obviously, it allows us to be partners with a really large merchandise company that provides NHL gear. So if you're going to be making any purchases in the near future, consider using our affiliate link, which we posted and at the pinned comment down below. Check them out for all your NHL merchandise gear and consider supporting the channel with your next purchase. Some injury updates around the league. The New Jersey Devils had placed Andre Palat on injured reserve, and they've called up Andreas Johansson to take his place. The Montreal Canadiens have been able to activate Yoel Armia, so he's back. So we'll hopefully see him in game action here soon. And the St. Louis Blues also got Pavel Buchnevich back as well. And then we found out just a short time ago that the Blackhawks are going to be without Seth Jones for about 3 to 4 weeks due to a thumb injury. So that's obviously a fairly substantial hit to the Blackhawks, who have had a decent start to the season. I know they're one of the teams many people, myself included, expected to see near the bottom of the standings, but it's still early. But obviously losing their top D for about a month will have a big impact, and we'll see where things go. Of course, he's not the only player they have on IR as well. And then we also saw some moves by the Vancouver Canucks on the roster, sending down Sheldon Dries, Noah Juleson, and Lane Peterson to the American Hockey League. Of course, Peterson they just picked up in the trade with Ethan Bear from the Carolina Hurricanes. Ethan Bear seems pretty happy, pretty stoked to be in Vancouver. Talked a lot about how he obviously watched the Canucks a lot growing up. It's close to home. His partners from Kelowna, so lots of things to like about Vancouver being a good fit for the Canucks and Ethan Bear. So we'll see how that works out. Be interesting to see him get into some game action. The Dallas Stars forward Ty Dellandrea has received a fine from NHL Player Safety. I know the fine amounts are pretty ridiculous on what they make compared to what they get fined for some of these things, but he was fined the maximum allowed in the CBA, which is $2,333 for tripping against Rangers goaltender Igor Shesterkin. Essentially, Dellandrea cut through the crease, or right at the top of the crease, and clicked skates with Igor. Igor went down, and it wasn't good. So obviously, it's really, I know there's some people who are trying to determine the intent. Was this intentional or not? It's really difficult to say. Now, the fact that he was fined leads us to think maybe the NHL thought so, or at the very least, they could have also looked at it as just being a little bit reckless, getting too close and making contact with the goalie. But regardless of what the thoughts were, he is fined a maximum allowed for tripping against the Ranger goaltender. Now, we saw an absolute thumping earlier today. The game just ended not too long ago before I started to record, but the Devils beat the Jackets 7-1, and now the Jackets are now 3-7 on the year after 10 games, and they're minus 18 in the goal differential. That's an absolutely horrendous start. We know the Jackets, of course, went out, made some good moves. They picked up Johnny Gaudreau in free agency. Besides getting Gaudreau, they were hoping to have a healthy Patrick Laine on pace this year to do some damage after re-signing him to a new contract as well. and things just have not materialized. There's a variety of things to look at, but after the game today, the Jackets were having a closed-door meeting. So certainly things have escalated quickly in Columbus. I mean, I know myself, I don't know what they expected from themselves, of course, but for me, I expected them to be probably the bottom one or two teams in the division. Not because I thought they were going to be really awful. I just thought they'd be really in a tough division. I honestly expected them to be better than the Flyers this year. So far, that's proven to be wrong. The Islanders are another team that's been playing really well the last few games. They were debatable as well. And then, of course, the Devils themselves, who, I still wasn't completely convinced the Devils would challenge for playoffs. And they had a bad start to the season, but they've played much better lately, too. So, hard to say what happens in Columbus. I really wonder what was said inside that room. I don't know if they would contemplate a coaching change. I mean, the Jackets are another team that's been rumored to be looking at making some other moves. Like, for example, we did get reports from Aaron Portzline, who covers the Jackets for The Athletic, basically confirming, as far as his sources are known, that the Jackets are out on the Jacob Chychrun sweepstakes. They have been one of the teams, along with Ottawa, LA, that's kind of been the most mentioned team in the rumor mill to be rumored to have heavy interest in this defenseman and picking him up. Of course, he comes with some term, comes with some pedigree, but he has battled injuries and is yet to play this year. And from what Portzline's reporting, that is certainly playing a big role here in their decision. But if it's not going to be Chychrun, who's it going to be? Because it's been well documented by other reporters, including Portzline, that Jarmo Kekalainen has not been happy with his blue line. We know that they haven't been pleased with the season so far of Adam Boqvist. And I do wonder if we could see a significant D trade on that back end. It may not necessarily be for Chychrun, of course, based on these reports, but something has to give here. I don't know if we could maybe see a coaching change, or this is going to be more on the players, perhaps, if Kekalainen tries to maybe make some moves here. So it's going to be very interesting. They have a very good young group of prospects and younger players that are already, mildly established in the NHL. Like, obviously Cole Sillinger had a solid rookie year. You got Kent Johnson, and there's more coming. Some good blue liners there. But they've also had some injuries as well. So, I don't know. I mean, Elvis Merzlikins, his stats don't look real pretty right now. I don't know if you can put it all on him, though, that the team in front of him hasn't been the greatest. But something has to give in Columbus. And it's difficult to say what it's going to be. I'm not sure what's going to happen next, but there's already been rumors about them looking for blue line help. And now as things continue to spiral, I wonder if that'll force the hand of Kekalainen and maybe get something done a little bit sooner. So we'll have to wait and see. But they're going to be a very interesting team to see how they respond after the adversity they're facing, and see if the team offers any assistance by way of trade or tries to shake things up in that group at all while it's still early in the season. Of course, the Sharks are another team I want to touch on. We talked about before how the fact that they don't really have much there for untouchable players, and based on their start to the season, I think it's pretty clear that regardless of a few wins here and there, the San Jose Sharks most likely are going to be a team near the bottom of the standings this year. And it's been reported by Elliot Friedman that GM Mike Greer is not afraid to blow up this roster and make several moves to kind of do a bit of a, I wouldn't know if they're going to want to really call it a rebuild. There's got some long-term deals there that may not be able to move, but definitely a pretty solid retool that might take a while to really have a long-term effect. But one name that we didn't really focus too much on the other day that definitely is available for the right deal, but might be challenging given the fact that he hasn't played the greatest, is Kevin Labanc. Labanc's a player that's certainly still, I think, has some potential. He's a player that at one point was certainly, you could say, higher valued by the Sharks, but has really ever since that last contract, when he signed that 1 year deal, 1 year, $1 million deal to give Doug Wilson and the Sharks a bit of a break on contract so he could stay with the organization and they could keep everybody together to continue to try to win together. And then ever since then, things have kind of regressed downhill. He did get a good contract after that, the one he's currently playing on now, but still, he hasn't really lived up to those numbers. So we'll see if he ends up getting a fresh start. But I know one name that's been getting some attention is Erik Karlsson, but there's no way they're going to trade Karlsson given the contract and the amount of term and money left in that deal. Yes, he's playing phenomenal right now, but I don't know that anybody really wants to really have an $11.5 million contract on their books. I can't see the Sharks retaining a big amount of money for several years. So as much as I've seen some fan bases kind of getting the attention of Karlsson based on his recent play, I I don't see that likely coming to be. Maybe they move Karlsson with a year or two left on that deal, perhaps, depending on where the team is at that point in time. But certainly not likely going to happen anytime soon. And of course, the Vancouver Canucks have been busy lately. We've seen a couple of fairly minor trades, and then we've seen, of course, the Ethan Bear deal. So things are starting to pick up. We know that they've got a couple of wins under their belt. I'm sure they're feeling a little bit better about things. But according to Elliotte Friedman reports, which makes a lot of sense, they are not done, and they're still looking at more help for the blue line, trying to restructure that to get them to be more effective both defensively and able to move the puck and contribute offensively as well. Of course, getting Quinn Hughes back, hopefully in a week or so, will be helpful too. But in the short term, one thing that's been mentioned here is that the fact that Captain Bo Horvat, according to Friedman, is not considered an untouchable player. He is in the final year of his deal, as we've known and we've discussed on the channel here a few times. The fact that, do they sign Horvat or do they consider moving on? And that's a tough question right now. Many of us probably a few months back would have predicted that Horvat gets a nice extension, probably settles into more of a second line role longer term, and that Miller was the guy that was likely going to depart, and now Miller gets a long-term deal, and it puts Horvat's future in question. And then, of course, Horvat started off really strong this year and proving that, you know what, these rumors that he's looking for, 7-8 year deal in that, potential $7.5-8 million range, that he's showing that he could be worth it. Like, there's no doubt. I mean, a lot of, I think teams and some fan bases seem to undervalue what this guy can bring. There's a lot of teams that he would be able to go to and play a bigger role. I have no doubt. So as much as I'm sure that Boudreau was a coach and some of his teammates would not want to see Horvat be moved, I do wonder with the extreme or need, you could say, on the back end, if they have difficulties on a contract extension, could Horvat be that trade piece they use to really get a stud defenseman? Like, it's going to take value to get value, and if you really want to find that solid stud D-man to work with Quinn Hughes, you might end up having to sacrifice a forward, and because of the contract situation, maybe Horvat ends up being that guy. Like I said, that's not something I would have said or really thought was reasonable or possible a few months back. And I know at this point to move Horvat off the roster seems a little crazy given how well he's played. But at the same time, you can't let an asset go out the door for nothing for a team that's already still kind of shaky here and still trying to get its grounding so they can get their season turned around. So they do have time to take a deep breath here, make some decisions, but they want help on the blue line. And except Friedman says that he's not untouchable. If they can get a deal done for a top solid defenseman, I wouldn't be shocked if they consider it. They kind of have to do something here because this blue line definitely still needs work, but we'll see what happens. Let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.